Good morning, everyone. We've got some strong to severe thunderstorms that will be impacting much of the plains later on this afternoon into the overnight time frame. That's all ahead of a little cool front that will be shifting southbound from the northwest down to the southeast. Out of the tropics, we do have several storms to talk about. In fact, we've got Category 4 Hurricane Gabrielle safely east of Bermuda. This will likely not impact anybody. But eventually, as it continues eastbound, it could, in fact, as at least a weak tropical storm, Portugal by the middle of next week. And then further south, we have a newly National Hurricane Center has an 80% probability of this, in fact, coming Humberto in the coming days. And then we have another little tropical wave just west of that has a 50% probability of forming in the coming days. So closer to home, there is the cool front that's shaped across the middle part of the country. It's going to be a warm day out ahead of it. In fact, we've got widespread 90s. Even some parts in Texas could, in fact, hit the triple-digit mark. Yes, we are into fall, folks. Warm out west, warm over the top. But it's the middle part of the country where we've got that cooler shot of air across Colorado and much of Nebraska, but down into Kansas. And that will only be in shifting southbound over the next several days. But of course, underneath that, yes, it's getting into that time of year. We've got some mountain snows to talk about and some freeze watches further south into Wyoming tonight into tomorrow morning. And across the middle part of the country, that's where we have that boundary in place. That's where we have the flash flood watches that are already bringing some heavy rains across Nebraska, getting into Oklahoma, as well as into Arkansas. And that will be setting the stage and turn severe later on this afternoon into the evening time frame. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has, in fact, upgraded this to a slight risk for severe storms just northeast of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, eastern areas of Oklahoma, but especially those in Arkansas. Well, we do have an elevated tornado threat, a 5% probability you could see an isolated tornado or two eastern side of Oklahoma, much of Arkansas, and then the far corners of northeast Texas. Further south down to the Dallas-Fort Worth area out into West Texas, I think it's more of a damaging wind threat with more or less a squall line, kind of a slow moving squall line in the evening time frame. Unfortunately, it will be like an overnight setup, say from 10 p.m. to 2 o'clock in the morning. So definitely be on high alert because we do have some high impact thunderstorms later on this afternoon. I think it all gets going about 3 o'clock, and it will really start to build as we head into sunset time frame and then start shifting slowly from the northwest down to the southeast into the overnight hour. So if we look at the helicity index, here's where you have the most concerning updrafts and the most rotation in the atmosphere. Yes, it's highlighted where they do have that 5% probability for tornadic activity later on this afternoon across eastern Oklahoma as well as into northwestern Arkansas. That would be the favorite zone if you're going to be seeing a tornado or two later on this afternoon. But even further south along that little squall line, you definitely can't roll out further south into southern Oklahoma and far northeast Texas as well. And there's the cool front as it shifts a little bit further south. We got plenty of warm air around it, so it's not terribly cool, especially for this time of year, but it's definitely a lot cooler than what we've been experiencing, especially for today in many of those areas where you might hit the upper 90s, even some triple digits. Those will be replaced by the 80s, if not the low 80s, by the time we head into tomorrow afternoon. So that will be a good 10 to 15 degree drop from what you're going to be experiencing today. But as this continues to move from the northwest down to the southeast, that ahead of it, we'll be seeing some strong to severe thunderstorms further south into southeast Texas and to South Texas, getting those areas into Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, much of Tennessee and Kentucky, and then even shifting as far north as Ohio into West Virginia as we head into tomorrow. And that will only continue to shift southeast bound on Thursday. Now that's going to be really highlighted over Alabama, back into Georgia by then. And then we'll likely swing up into Pennsylvania as well as into portions of the Northeast. You see in the Pacific, we do have yet another little feature out there in the Pacific where we are going to be talking about. So let's zoom into these two features. Of course, we talked about Gabrielle. This is the 80% probability this becomes Humberto. Most of the model guidances has this forming into a potential tropical storm, if not even a hurricane, but it will likely take the path of Gabrielle as well and be going safely out into the open waters. This one, you got to be a little bit more concerning. Right now, we have a 50% probability of the National Hurricane Center naming this Imelda, and I is the most retired named storm. So, and this is the one that's going to be at least a little getting somewhat closer to the United States. So we'll have to watch this as we head into next week. It could get close to the Carolinas as well to Virginia, if not spread definitely some heavier rains and some squally weather into that region. But out in the Pacific, we've been just knocking these storms one after another, and this is, what is it, Narda? So Narda out there in the Pacific will likely, again, not really impact anybody, but the outflow of it, just the outflow of it brings some kind of tropical moisture up there to the desert Southwest and California. They've been seeing this with Mario out there. So even though it's not going to be directly impacting, they'll kind of get the the cooler air and the indirect impacts from these Pacific systems that trend off to the west. But as you wake up on Friday morning, it's going to feel a little bit more like fall out there. Not the true fall front, but at least it feels like fall out there for a good part of the country. We've got widespread 40s and 50s showing up on the map with low temperatures across the middle part of the country. We got a pleasant 50s temperatures, and then further south we've got 60s. So it's not the 70s that most of you are experiencing this morning. Will be replaced by a 10 to 15 degree drop as soon as that cold front will be making it into your area. But by the time we head into this weekend, just like with any cool fronts, it kind of cleanses the atmosphere and clears it out for some nice weather on the backside. So terribly not too much action happening for your weekend. Most of the showers and thunderstorms will be feeling the effects of that system out there into the Atlantic, combined with the cool front. That will set the stage for more showers and thunderstorms that's going to be highlighted over Florida, back into Georgia, as well as into the Carolinas and into Virginia. And like I mentioned, we'll have to be watching this and see how close this is able to get as we head into next week time frame. So there's your weekend. It's going to be a really pleasant weekend ahead. A lot of clear skies out there. Again, the only outflow is going to be the outflow from the Pacific storms with the monsoonal flow. So they'll take actually all the rain they can get into the Four Corners regions, into the desert Southwest, even some much needed rain for areas into California. Much of the middle part of the country behind that cool front will be on the dry side. And the only impact in town would likely be along that cool front. And you can see where most of the rains will be spreading into the islands there. Be watching the overall path of what this system is going to be taking in the coming days and heading into next week. And as we head into next week, going into that Sunday afternoon time frame, you can see where the cooler air is, where you're cloudy and you get more of the outflow, the tropical outflow. That's where you got somewhat of the cooler temperatures, and they're going to be really experiencing pleasant light conditions. But over the top, it's not really going to feel like fall. It's going to be plenty warm across a good part of the country, with well above average temperatures highlighted over the northern plains and much of the middle part of the country, as well as into the Great Lakes as well. And I think that actually just kind of continues for next week as the warmer than average conditions continue for the last week of September and heading into those first couple of days of October. So you're well above average across the northern tier. And then the only cooler spot will likely again be where you have been really hot all summer long. You're finally getting some of that monsoonal flow and some of the flow from the Pacific storm. So they'll be taking advantage of that, of some of that cooler pocket of air. And that's where most of the precipitation will likely unfold, with that flow coming in from the Pacific and there'll be systems coming in from the Northwest. So I think the rains would likely come back for the far coastal areas of the Pacific Northwest. much of the desert southwest and of the Four Corners regions will be seeing at least opportunities for rain showers into the coming of next week, while most of the northern plains into the Tennessee and Ohio Valley and back into the mid-Atlantic, as well as in the Northeast and much of the Great Lakes, will be on the overall drier side. So guys, I appreciate you watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update. Wire protect you before and after the storm.